Welcome back, everybody. My name is HartyMcSmarty, and today we're going to be talking about Gypsy Rose Blanchard and her very odd recent appearances in the media that make me terrified for the future generation as well as her safety, and probably mental state. I think that's a good way to put it. So, in a time of internet randomness where we make jokes about Skibbity Toilet and Phantom Tax and Fortnite Item Shop, we now have Gypsy Rose Blanchard, somebody who was a part of a crime, who just got out of jail, becoming an influencer. But I really think it's best that we start out from the beginning and do a little bit of an introduction, a very simplified introduction of who Gypsy is, what happened, and why I'm concerned. Let's start off with Gypsy Rose, whose mother's known as Deedee Blanchard. Deedee Blanchard was somebody who had Munchausen by proxy syndrome, or otherwise known as fictitious disorder imposed on another. It's not funny, sorry, that name blows my mind. Which is a disorder where essentially, I'm gonna whip up a definition. Munchausen syndrome by proxy is a mental health condition in which a caregiver makes up or causes an illness or injury in a person under their care, such as a child, an elderly person, or an adult with a disability. Or child with a disability, I guess. Because vulnerable people are the victims, Munchausen is considered a horrible form of child abuse or elderly abuse. And one of the main known cases of Munchausen's is Gypsy's story. Like I said, Deedee Blanchard had Munchausen's and basically made her daughter sick and live with illnesses that she did not actually have, as might have been a trauma cope. We don't really know why this happens yet. It is a horrific illness. That's pretty much all there is to say about it, and it's a very rare case. In most cases, like with Gypsies, the system really failed her, but we're gonna get into that, so let's keep going. So Gypsy had been diagnosed with various different disorders. That includes leukemia. Her mom would shave her head to appear like medication was making her hair fall out. Muscular dystrophy, which is why her mother claimed she was in a wheelchair. And I want to say as well their teeth and saliva glands. Her glands in her mouth that produce her saliva were removed. Do y'all just ever notice how like fucking disgusting your keyboard is? Like, sorry, this is serious. I just can't pay attention. So essentially, Gypsy spent most of her childhood being coached by her mom to be sick. Essentially being manipulated, and just forced to live out a life that she didn't understand why she couldn't have friends, she didn't understand why she couldn't do normal things that other kids could. And putting that into perspective is really hard. This case itself, even just Gypsy's case along with her mom, is not a good one. It is sad. It is really sad. Eventually, Gypsy met this guy named Nick who became infatuated with her and was in love with her. And to make it simple, they decided that they were going to kill Gypsy's mom, because I guess Nick already had the compulsion that he wanted to act out on this kind of thing, and Gypsy felt that there was no other way out, and that I'm pretty sure eventually she felt her mom was going to hurt her. Essentially, there were texts where they talked about planning this crime. When it came to executing the crime, I believe Nick showed up at Gypsy's house. Gypsy was supposed to then stab her mom while she was asleep, and couldn't do it, I guess. She just couldn't. So she went into the bathroom. Nick took the weapon from her, went into the room with Deedee, stabbed her, I believe it was 4 times, yeah, and killed her. And I'm going to talk a little bit more later about the stipulation between this crime and who did what and if it was really Nick's fault. This case did take place in the state of Missouri. Missouri does not have an accomplice to murder a crime, so Gypsy was charged with second-degree murder and spent 8 of 10 years of her prison sentence in jail. But she had the opportunity to receive parole, so she did, and now we are where we are today. Nick got life. He is still serving his sentence with no opportunity for parole. So there's that. Now that we have a general background on Gypsy, we're gonna talk about what's going on. Okay, like on one hand, I'm seeing TikToks completely mocking this poor girl, and then on the other hand, it's like, slay queen, go Gypsy. This girl is like the victim, like, poster child. I don't know why we're saying she's a slay queen, bad bitch, living her best life, getting her nails done as soon as she's out of jail. But it's not uncommon in true crime for people to obsess over, speculate, or be interested in criminals. As humans, we do tend to glorify true crime people because we are fascinated, we are infatuated. The fact that Gypsy lived in this situation for so many years and eventually got out of it through doing a horrific act that she claims she's aware of and she's paid her dues for, but isn't like regretful of. That's interesting. Maybe you've watched The Act and it was like, oh, it was a cool movie, you know? It's such a crazy story. It's so real. It's like me in the Nutty Putty Cave, okay? I could talk about the Nutty Putty Cave for hours, and I don't know that much about it, but in the time I was researching it and interested in it, it's the fact that people crawl into holes blows my mind. But the fact that, and the way that victims come out of situations like this, and we're fascinated. We want to know why. We always want to know the why. We are curious beings, right? So the fact that this is a really rare condition and a very rare case that got so big and only got more popular over time and is only now getting more popular over time is crazy. I do think one of the reasons that people now are glorifying Gypsy in the media and standing her and asking her if she likes Taylor Swift is because of the fact that Gypsy didn't really kill her mother. Nick killed her. So in a way, it kind of makes her seem like she's just, like I said, the golden victim. That she didn't still commit a crime and didn't still agree to let somebody murder her caregiver and mother and the person she spent her entire life with. So like, you know what I mean? And I'm gonna say too that it's important to know that I can't personally relate to Gypsy's story. None of us can unless you've lived with somebody and are a victim of Munchausen syndrome by proxy. And I also don't want to sound ignorant for assuming such, but I do believe that she was in a situation that she probably thought she couldn't get out of and did take drastic measures. Which is really sad. And again, we are fascinated with her story. She was playing a childlike role till she was 23-ish. So I do believe that we have this like internal childlike view of Gypsy. Like, oh, look at her. She's just a little baby out in the big old world now that she's out of prison and away from her mom. And she's just so cute and stan-worthy. And oh my God, we just love her. Glorifying victims of a syndrome like Munchausen's by proxy is... it's horrible. And I know people think it's funny. I know it's just meme. I know the D is just fire. But it's... people have to have some decency. So now, let's talk about the problem. Let's talk about what this does, okay? I could care less if Gypsy's, like, twerking on my timeline. Go ahead. I mean, I'm not looking forward to that, but I think it would be kind of funny. The problem is what happens when we glorify her long term. For starters, let's just analyze the facts. One of the most well-known victims of true crime out there, of child abuse for at least 20 years, by the way, who spent 8 years in prison, which was, I would say, one of her only basic forms of socialization. And if you know anything about humans who are unsocialized, that's not great. I don't believe... And also the fact that prison is its own environment where people, like, you know, can be certain ways. I don't think prison is a freedom in any way. There's a clip of her saying that she felt prison was, like, freeing, which is sad. I don't even know if it makes you worried. I think it's just really sad. Yeah. She's also never fully experienced social media besides her trial. So essentially she is a social baby. Like, she's, compared to those of us, like, you know, for instance myself, because that's all I know is me, who's been on the line for over 10 years, and tends to know a little bit about what to say versus what not to say on the internet. This girl lacks social etiquette, alright? For starters, the post about the D being fire is crazy. Her openly talking about how her husband is rocking her world every night. It's a little bit out there. And my third mention is the nephew post, where she basically was like, come get him, ladies. He's 15. And I mean, if you saw my last video, you know how that turns out. I also think that the impression on youth is really bad. The fact that Gypsy plotted to kill her mother, which worked out. She went to jail, got out of jail, and became a TikToker / Instagram influencer. If I'm a 9-year-old girl and I see this post and I think my mommy's mean, do you think it would make me famous? Would it make me famous? Should I try? You see the problem? That's the problem. I do feel that Gypsy has served her time. Well, at least 8 to 10 years. So, I mean, it's 2024. What the fuck, I guess. We're just letting criminals just become influencers, I guess. I want to talk about some mixed opinions, too, with this whole situation. And I'm sure these have been topics for years, but they're resurfacing to talk, like, when it comes to Gypsy, so we're just gonna talk about them. Did she manipulate Nick to committing the crime? Let's consider the facts. Gypsy is the daughter of Deedee, who has a mental disorder revolved heavily around manipulating, lying, pathologically, and convincing people. Nick is also said to have autism, and was in a very vulnerable state as he was like completely and utterly in love with Gypsy. And she felt she couldn't do the crime, so he took the knife, he stabbed her for her, because he said he would kill for Gypsy. I mean, sure, maybe, could be. But the other side of that too is the fact that I saw TikTok and this woman said that the point I just said shouldn't be invalid. We're gonna say both sides are, because it's a mixed opinion thing, right? The fact that Gypsy gave Nick the option of killing her mother when he is said to already have the intent to want to try to kill somebody. They argue that Gypsy simply gave Nick the opportunity to give in to his urges, which I think is a fair approach too. The other side is that people say that he was autistic and was a victim in this situation and is now serving life for Gypsy. Now, not just about Nick, but is there a chance that she's manipulating us all at once about her story, her case, her experience? Which personally makes me more excited to think about than just Nick. The fact that Gypsy sitting in a chair and talking to us could potentially be trying to manipulate us about her story, I think it's pretty cool, actually. Like, psychologically, I'm really interested in it. I'm like, I like to think that her intentions are pure, but I don't know Gypsy Rose Blanchard. None of us do, besides, like, her husband, Ryan. So, I don't know. I mean, I hope not. But if so, the internet will lynch her for it. Speaking of Ryan, her husband, who is being memed because he apparently looks a lot like Deedee, which I can really, I can't unsee it. No, it's there. And I mean, making jokes about a victim who married a man who appears like her previous abuser, it's not funny, guys. It's really not funny. Don't be like that. It's not cool. You have to remember where Gypsy Rose first started and how she got here, and her story is a big part of that. So Ryan also does weird me out though, because of the fact that he constantly tends to interject with Gypsy or overtalk her, kind of in a way that her mom did. Like, I don't want to compare the two again, like I just said, but the fact that, like, Gypsy would talk as a kid and her mom would interrupt her, it's it does give the same vibes. I really think that somebody could have just cloned Deedee and then cut his hair off and made him look like Brian, and here we are. But I think it's really bad too that having such an overwhelming umbrella of support from different groups, different communities, different people also probably makes Gypsy feel like she has support from most of the people who are enjoying her content, excited to see her, blah 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 blah. But the matter of fact is that the internet isn't your friend. Most people are brutally honest and rude, and if you're not serving them the content they like, they don't want to look at you on the internet anymore, and they don't feel like you deserve your fame. So the point I'm trying to get at is that they are her friends until they are not. The internet will love Gypsy Rose until something comes up and they cancel her and basically dig her grave for her. After all these years of being in the media, I feel something is going to come up, or she's going to post something and it will just completely shift her narrative, which is concerning, especially for her and her scenario. But I do think the fact that we are all like jumping on her with support saying "Stan" does not help at all. I more or less worry for her mental health, that she feels like the internet is there to save her and be nice to her and is just full of haters. But we can already see her saying to back off the haters and that the D is fire anyway, so. And regardless of where you lie on the side of Gypsy Rose, did she kill her mother, did she not, is she a victim, is she not? We have to have some decency at the end of the day. We need to be serious. We need to try to look at as many facts as we can, and talk about it. I really don't think the internet should be this deep when it comes to somebody like Gypsy. I mean, they're doing the same thing with fucking Stanley Cups, which I also don't see the appeal in. It's a cup. Don't call me broke, but this water bottle's doing me just fine. But it does make a sound, so maybe I should go buy a Stanley Cup. But anyway, I want to know how you guys feel about this situation, as well as where you stand with Gypsy and her situation. I think it's very important to talk about Munchausen. Definitely deserves more exposure as a mental illness. We need to be aware of it, because most cases, the victims of it are not heard, and we just don't know what's out there. If you guys enjoyed this video and are entertained and want to stick around, please go check out my most recent video, which is my Yandere Dev grooming video, which I was very proud of. And y'all seem to really like it, so definitely go give it a click, a check out, a like, a subscribe, something funky for something fun. But anyway, you guys, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys all in the next one.